Okay, good morning for those of you that have tuned in live. For those of you that are watching it later, good afternoon or whatever time you see this. What is it? 11:30 Friday, the 23rd of January. I can't believe January is almost done, to be fair. But anyway, here we are. And the question kind of, I suppose we're going to look into the charts today is we, we've kind of been in and around, the thumb title says 90K, but we're 89,000. Let's just give us a break there. But we have been around this 90K level for the last 2 months, really. Appreciate we've gone to 94 and we've also gone down to about 86, but there or thereabouts. And the question is, we're stuck in this range. What can we really expect in the short term, medium term? Ultimately, long term, we expect Bitcoin going north. But I'm talking next 4 weeks, also the next sort of 3 to 4 months. So we'll have a look at where things are going from that. It is kind of a charting call. Someone asked me about probabilities of BitTensor getting down to $90. So we will also have a look at that and just have a little discussion, debate about where we think that is realistically. But we'll just start as we always do, 3-day time frame, and as I say, smack bang in the middle of the range that we've kind of been at. Now, actually, I was just messing around with these lines, and I've realised probably didn't look right. It was up here on the 3-day time frame, 86,000, and I was on the daily, and I moved it down to 84. It doesn't necessarily matter. On the daily, the 84 kind of works, but on the 3-day, the 86 works. The 86 is where it is where it was, so that's where we'll leave it. But as you can see, no real change from Tuesday. We had the rejection from the 94,500 level. We are trending down towards that 86. And I'll have to bring that chart, but I haven't got it ready. But we did get down to that fib level that we talked about, that 1.41 before. Fib level around about 88,000. And we had a fairly decent bounce from that one, certainly on the 12-hour time frame. And we kind of just find ourselves in limbo. And it's interesting because we started off the week with a little bit of bad news, well, political news, in terms of just Donald Trump ramping up his threats on Greenland, throwing out the tariffs, which he talked about on Tuesday. Wednesday came along, Trump spoke at Davos. The EU decided they were going to impose their own tariffs. And then, lo and behold, apparently, although we haven't seen the details of it, Trump says he had a very successful meeting. I can't remember even who he met, but anyway. And good news, tariffs are going to be lifted. Market kind of reacted positively. Bitcoin not really done too much, but that sort of seems to be par for the course for the last few weeks or so. In terms of some of the other ones, we'll go into more detail in a moment with Bitcoin. Don't worry, Bitcoin dominance kind of at the top end, sort of near 60%. But I mean, if anything, this is following a fairly steep line right now. And we broke that down to say like a daily or a 4-hour. You could almost say, I wonder if this may now break and come back down to the bottom of this range at around about 58. It's only a % difference, but might give altcoins something to run for a day or two. But certainly something to have a look at. Straight back on the 3-day time frame. Total 2. I mean, we look at it, but for me, it still tells me everything I need to know about altcoins. They're kind of still in the toilet, in my opinion. Really have struggled. I know it looks very similar to the Bitcoin chart, but Bitcoin's one asset. This is a summary of every other asset, and just not seeing much movement out for it. We're significantly below that key level. Although that being said, we are in regions in which we have seen a bounce, which may also indicate a short-term rally with altcoins, seeing Bitcoin dominance drop back down. And then we get on to BitTensor, which on face value of it's still not looking great. That's kind of the reality. Hard to call on a 3-day time frame where we think the next bottom would be. I mean, if you were a betting person, you'd probably put it down here at sort of 215. Trying to make, well, maybe just slightly north of it, try and find some sort of double bottom out of that there. But it has fallen a significant amount from that 300 level. So you could expect a turnaround at any moment. Let's have a look on the lower time frames to kind of see where that finds us. In terms of fear and greed, not sure what. Look at this love honey charts. I promise you I've not been watching too much of that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's what the adverts I'm getting these days. Fear and greed index. I mean, bouncing around 24 today, 20 yesterday. Last week, we were talking about being in neutral and greed territories. And if we have a look down on the chart, this is over a year's period. You can see, considering we're supposed to be in a bull market, we have been down in this level for nearly 4 months. We have been pretty much sub 30 in the time for peak bull market blow off top, but I don't know what that is. That's probably 11 out of 12 weeks, which is kind of wild when you think about it, especially when you see what the rest of risk on and risk off assets are doing. So crypto doesn't really feel like it's the place to be at the moment, unfortunately, but that's where we find ourselves. In terms of top 100 trending coins at the moment, I thought this was interesting. Someone said to me that they were long in gaming. I was like, really? You know, I'm here for any kind of alpha, and apparently gaming's doing quite well. And actually, if you ever look at Axie, it's a good indicator, I suppose, of gaming next to Manam and Sandbox and a few of the others, or Sand, should I say. It's up 100% this week. Now, it's a long way off. I remember the days of Axie being about $120. So, but still, in the last 7 days, it actually has gone up 7%. So maybe there's some opportunity to have a look there. I'm just trying to quickly get. It's not what I was wanting. I was looking for sectors. Where am I looking here? Categories. Let's just have a look at the gaming category. Since I'm here, we'll do it. If we can find it, gaming. Here we go. It's taking its time. So yeah, so Axie is, well, let's have a look at the big ones. I've never heard Kazuzo's Friends, never heard of it, but okay, it's 574. It is up 300%. Well done to it. But Axie, 100%. Naka, which is one I used to be interested in anyway. That's up 30%. Sand, as I mentioned, is up 28%. SLP is up 20%. I mean, that is a token that was made just to die, but there it is. So, okay. Mana, Decentraland up 15%. I'm just looking at sort of some of the bigger ones, but a little bit of movement. But you can actually, I mean, look at this. It's kind of wild. The market caps are pretty small for gaming. You know, gaming was thought to be the next big thing. And I think that's maybe just a polite reminder that just because you think something's going to be a massive sector, unless it gets adoption, it really ain't. Render, they're classing that in the gaming sector. Not really sure I would, but that's the only one I've seen so far over $1 billion, which is, like I say, kind of wild thinking when 2-3 years ago people thought that the gaming sector was going to take over crypto. Not quite materialized in that manner. Okay, let's get into some actual charts. Bitcoin weekly time frame we'll have a look at the moment. No real change. It's not looking particularly pretty after that rejection. And I appreciate there's a yellow line on there. Just ignore that for now. That's more important on the 4-hour time frame. Actually, I'll just get rid of it. Yeah, so a fairly conclusive rejection from this level. Matter of fact, the rejection itself, and we nothing to be afraid of as such, but from its current price, we are down around about 9% from that rejection. Obviously, 2 days ago for the weekly time frame here. RSI is kind of fairly neutral. It's not oversold. It's not overbought. It's just hovering in and around the 40, so not there. But we are below the 10. We are below the 50. We are below the 20. 20 and the 50 are crossing. Never a good sign, as we've alluded to. So there's certainly some areas for thought there. I think someone mentioned actually the monthly. And yeah, the monthly isn't looking great. Still got 9 days to recover from that. But right now, you know, rejection off the 10 on the monthly. We're hovering just on the 20 at the moment. And, you know, we lose it. And if we're solely talking about EM, and we've talked about vectors and EMAs, I hate to say it, there's a vector down at 70 and the EMA's at 65. And it's still got plenty of distance on the RSI for that to fall. So, not the best. Mark, the stream I sort of watch on my other monitor looks okay. It's on time, excellent feeds. Maybe it's just yourself. Try resetting it, perhaps. If anyone else has got a problem, just let me know. But it looks all right. I'll wave and see if I can see myself. Yep, there we go. Okay. Hopefully that clears up for you there. Right, so I don't want to dwell too much on the monthly. We've still got 8 days to go. But yeah, that certainly needs. You'd like that to be better. But what I will say, actually, whilst we're on it, we're still in an uptrend. So high tests not always the most reliable in an upwards moving market. And, for the low test to be confirmed, we'd have to lose 82. So from a monthly point of view, maybe there's some, solace in that there. Right, let's get back into something we can actually use, daily timeframes right now. Okay, so let's just, address. Sorry, Bijan's put 70k BTC would be the death of 99% of volts. Yeah, I think that's probably right. We've been in this range for 2 months, 2.5 months. And one thing I talk about all the time is recovering of vector candles. And within this range, and the range I'm talking about is, I know we dip a little bit higher than it, but this range here, okay? So I know we got a wick above and a wick below, but there was no vector down there, and this vector was recovered. So, but this meaty bit of the range is what I'm talking about. Every single time we have made a vector candle, it has been recovered. There is not one outstanding vector bar the latest red candle from 3 days ago. So that says to me that if we remain within this range, for those of you that are worrying, this will get recovered, okay? We will see a movement back up to here, okay? So assuming we don't lose 84,700, assuming we don't lose this level here, at some stage we will get that recovered. That's not the best in terms of, brilliant, thanks for nailing on some TA there. But the reality of it is, and we see this in every range we're in, whilst we're in that range, we move up and down. And whatever happens in terms of vectors, we will ultimately recover it. So that is something to at least suggest, okay, well, maybe I bought into something when I shouldn't have, and I was looking for just a short-term play. It's not gone my way. Well, there's a good chance we're going to see 92 again, maybe even 93 as we recover that red vector candle. It's just about now being patient, sitting on your hand. And then if you are concerned about it, making sure you don't get swept up in the hype of us actually moving up to 93, especially if we do that via a vector, because it's highly likely it's going to come back down again. So that's sort of, something to at least rest your hat on a little bit and say, okay, I'm patient. I've been in this market now for 3 years. I can wait another year. I'm trying to redraw this. It's better on the 4 hour, but it was basically trying to connect these wicks, and then they turn out to be candles. And right now, I appreciate it doesn't suit that wick there, and obviously it didn't suit this first wick here. But generally, we've seen some sort of bottom happen here, and I wouldn't say we've seen wild bounces from it, except for this time. And even this one's a fairly decent move. This one's more of a progressive move up. We've got a few candles since bouncing off this one, but no major action. But again, as long as we can keep above this line, then we're just continuing in that range. And the other line that would go with it would be something along, I don't know, I'd have to draw it on the 4 hour, but something along this sort of line, in and around that. And it's just a case of us just being patient whilst we work that through. We can utilize, as I say, the RSI to just give us a bit of a flavor of where things are. And again, 2 green vector candles. I mean, if you just look at, I'm gonna have to clear this. 2 green vector candles here with the RSI dipping into overbought on the daily, kind of suggested that we were going to see these retrace. And that's exactly what's going to happen. The RSI's moved in a similar direction for that. Now we're just sort of moving sideways, and it's starting to cool off a little bit. So plenty of reason to suggest that we will see some upside. We just can't guarantee when that's going to be. And I suppose it just adds to that, are we stuck in this range? And it feels like we are, because bad news drives us down. Good news doesn't really seem to drive us up. It feels like what we are waiting for is whenever the market makers, the big boys, the institutions, the MicroStrategy, whenever they feel like they have accumulated enough at this range and they want to sell, they will drive that price up so that they can get out. And that's sort of where we are in terms of what we're waiting. But really, considering that last week we saw that 10% fall, we've really been moving 0.5% each day over the last couple of days. So for Bitcoin, not particularly volatile in that sense. When subnets, I tell you, I'll be in subnets soon, I promise you. No. So 4 hour time frame. Bit of a different picture in terms of what's holding price back. Now we've dropped down onto the lower time frames. We can kind of see that this 10 EMA has really controlled the price over the last 48 hours. And when I talk about high test not being great in a rising market, look at this one for a low test. But we were in a falling market. It's just not really cared. Yeah, okay. We had that green vector candle. Boom. Market came correcting back down. This might have actually been EU tariffs. I think what this timing wise, Wednesday the 21st, EU announced the tariffs after Donald Trump spoke. Trump spoke from about 2:30 till 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, that kind of times in. EU announced tariffs. Market comes down. About 4 hours later, Trump comes out and goes, made a deal on Greenland. We don't know what the details are, but he's made a deal. Markets recover. So, yeah, maybe that's, just a little bit of a showmanship. But the 10 EMA is really holding us back. Now, yes, we are drawn to it every single candle. And the thought process is the more we tax it, the weaker it becomes. And I get that. But to be fair, the 20 EMA is not that far away from us either. So, even a move up past the 10, a sustained move, is only going to take us to around about 90. What I'm really interested in is breaking this 20 level. And the RSI is kind of suggesting that we're low enough, we're building ourselves up a little bit of a bullish divergence in terms of prices coming down, but the RSI is going up, maybe sort of building that pressure for that move up. And the real target I'll be looking from the 4 hour is where the 50 and the 200 are currently at, because they're crossing each other. Bit of an extra super support there, around about 91.5. Let's just call it 92, just to give us a little bit of wiggle room for a wick through there. And that's going to take out a couple of these vector zones here too. I imagine it'll drive this RSI up quite nicely. And the question then is, can we sustain and hold above the 50 EMA? We've had a few battles with the 50 EMA over the last sort of 2-3 weeks, and we do seem to break it. We break it how we like with vectors, strong movements up, but then, it is relatively low volume. I know it leaves a vector, but you got to remember that's all relative based on the previous amount of candles. And at the moment, volume on crypto is quite light, and so it doesn't take that much to reverse it back down, sadly. You can kind of see the history. We talked about it last week, so don't need to flog a dead horse. But that move up straight to the 800 EMA on the 4 hour time frame, and then a great rejection from that one. And then obviously we've just fallen away with Trump announcing tariffs and everything else, the showmanship that goes with it. And look, we dump, just to highlight, we dump on bad news. So Trump announces the tariffs against the EU. Trump takes off the tariffs from the EU. So, let's just do it from a percentage point of view. The bad news helped us fall 7.5%. The reversal of the bad news ultimately, I've done that the wrong way because it's giving me a negative. Let me do it from the bottom. Only brought back half of that, 3.5%. So that's kind of the battle that we are ultimately having. And until narratives kind of shift in terms of perception of interest within the crypto space, particularly Bitcoin, I just don't really see that changing too much, unfortunately. But that'd be the short-term target there. Now, to the downside, because we're off pretty low. I mean, let me just redraw it. I drew that 4 hour on, that support line on the daily. Let's draw it on the 4 hour now. You can kind of get a better picture of it. It was, how was it? Was it here? I think it was that. Don't worry, I'll zoom in so you can see it a bit better. Yeah, that wick down is what I'm sort of basing that vast bit of support on. And so we've got wiggle room down to 87. Let's just call it 87 flat. It's 87,300 really. And then a loss of that, and sadly, you're kind of talking about levels you don't really want to be considering. I mean, your best bet's 84.5, which we don't really want, but ultimately a break of that line, I think we retest 82,500. And so we really are working on making sure that we actually sustain above this. As I say, the RSI perhaps maybe working in our favor, some sort of bearish divergence, bullish, sorry, doesn't really give us a time frame for that to break. But we're coming up here. Friday's always a bit of a funny day. We're going to the weekend as well with only crypto effectively working. Previously, that normally is a good thing. You see the pump over the weekend. I wouldn't say it's that's so much the case over the last couple of months. But yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I'm going to have areas of concern if we lose 87, and I'm wanting to see a retest minimum of 91,500, 92 level, as I mentioned. It's all about whether or not we can hold above it. And even if we do, obviously, we're in that range, and I expect all of those to be recovered at some stage because that's how the range works. And right now, you'd be thinking, again, assuming we get past this level and we work up, the battleground is actually going to be where this line kind of comes along around about 96, 700. Of course, I've extrapolated that. It will move and won't quite be as precise as that. But that's where I'd see that the actual battle being recovering those vectors. I'm sure we'll leave some vectors in our wake. And if we can't stay above that 800 EMA in the 4 hour time frame, we're going to come back and collect those vectors, whichever we leave. Sadly, it's not really that, it's always a seesaw, I can't ever give a definitive answer of which way it's exactly going. We just to play, understand both sides of it and take it from there. I don't think the hour tells us much else, although we'll have a look at it. I mean, the 50 is what's holding us back, which kind of ties in with, the 10 on the 4 hour. So it's ever so slightly different, but we can kind of see similar levels, 96, 91.6 to 92. We've got the 800 and the 200 looking to cross, which again is an area to draw. Not as many vectors up there. The vectors are in this zone at 95 where there was some heavy selling in and around that. But we're a lot closer to this 50 EMA, but we are still being controlled below it. And we need to break 89, 700, let's call it, or 89, 600. Let's give ourselves an extra 100 there for us to really want to break above it. But even the times we have, we've never been able to sustain it. It's just been wicks above. There's room in the RSI for us to move up though, so plenty of opportunity there. Onto the daily, onto BitTensor, and let's have a look. So just we'll do the current side first, and then Mark will come and have a look at what you want me to chat about. So this is what, this is kind of where what I was alluding to on the 3-day time frame, and things aren't looking particularly great. We've had that move up to the 300 level, rejected from it. We're coming back down, and there is still room to run. Whether you want to use this hand-drawn line, which I can't remember when I did it, but it actually worked quite nicely. It was prior to this, or you do this actual trend line I've drawn. For me, all sides seem to say 220 to 210 is an absolute consideration that we can't ignore. We've got EMAs all fanning out in the wrong direction for us, all lining up incorrectly in terms of the 10, the 20, the 50, the 200 and the 800 are about to flip each other. So it's a lot of work for us to do to the north side. We've got a tiny vector candle between 250 and 261, but there's no guarantee that has to get taken straight away. We'll assume it will get taken, but it's not a huge amount of a distance for us to sort of be drawn to it. We could wick in and wick back down quite simply on that one. And so where things currently stand, it just feels that right now the path maybe down to 220, as I say, maybe as low as 210, find a better bounce from that. And again, the RSI is still on the daily. It's given us room that we could get down there. Now, I will give it, some credit to say at the moment, its bottom is slightly higher than the previous one. So maybe the buyers are stepping in and we're looking to try and build from that level. But I just don't see BitTensor running on its own. I think the rest of the market would have to do that. I don't see many other AI projects really outpacing the market as it currently stands. Oops, we drop onto the 4 hour. And now at least there is a bit more noise here up at this level. As I say, you call across, we don't have any remaining vectors here. They all get taken. So there is some, light at the end of the tunnel that at least we should get back up to, if not 300, so that 280, 290 kind of level, clearing out these vector zones here. Maybe there's an opportunity there for those of you that have managed to buy in or looking for a sidestep. But in terms of similar to what Bitcoin was doing with the 4 hour, the 10 EMA is really holding us down. And the only times we've broken through, the 20s just said, no, you're not getting any further than that. And right now, that's where the battle is. We've got to stay above 244. But stay above 244, we can then start talking about attacking the 50 EMA. But we ain't done it yet. So, and we don't really need to come back and retest the 50 from a times point of view. It's not that long ago that we hit it. It was less than a week ago. So we spent much longer periods of either above or below without them coming back for a retest. I mean, this one was basically from the 1st until the 15th, so 2.5 weeks. So still plenty of opportunity for this to stay down before we get that move back up and ultimately that retest of those, sorry, that reclaiming of those vectors there. Right, I'm going to clear all of this. How do I do this without getting rid of 11 drawings? Right, I'm going to do this by hand. Sorry, because I don't know if I want to clear it all. I want to put it on to the weekly time frame, and let's have a look at not the claim, the question of whether $90 is possible. Okay. I just want to mark out where $90 is. I should have prepared this beforehand, so apologies there. $90 is there. Okay, I see what you're looking at. So let's get rid of those as well. So get rid of that one. I've got doing now. Thanks, Chaps. Okay, right, fine. So $90 is basically what we're saying here. It was the bum line of this double bottom right back at inception kind of time frame down here before that move from $35 basically up to 250 or whatever was that first impulse move up, which on the weekly time frame obviously has left some noise down there. And obviously there is an attraction. I don't know if that's the right term. There's a price magnetism, I suppose, to that $90 level. But I think there's plenty of other levels ahead of it before, maybe not that we need to get worried, but that we at least need to consider. The first one being that line that I've drawn there, which we already spoke about, around about that 210, 220 kind of level. And I think the other level, which absolutely you cannot ignore, is this one. Let's get rid of that now. So 162, let's just call it 160, all right? Just look at how much it ties into it. So we got this bounce here, oops, and a strong reaction from it, but nevertheless, 10th of October, that one there. We had there or thereabouts, the bottom of the tariff debacle in April of last year, down there. Then we had the crash after the Binance listing. So the Binance listing that took it up to, 770. We came all the way down. This is what, 2024 now, and we were down at 165. Again, a good strong bounce from there. But even here, you can just see that actually we did reject off it there, came back down, but we cleared it. So in terms of 4 major areas on the weekly time frame, it's the 160, which has been defended relatively well. Certainly the last 3 occasions, we've had strong movements from it. And whilst I can't guarantee that 162 is going to hold next time, what I would be saying is if we get down to 162, don't just assume or panic and say it's going to go lower. Wait to see what happens. But history has kind of said that the buyers really step in. They feel that BitTensor is a good value at that level, and they're going to look to buy. Now, there was a bit of a vector below there, but each time, I mean, this was a whole vector. First time around, it got eaten in a bit, never really has been retested. If we get down to that level, and BitTensor could end up that way without the rest of the market going, we cannot stick our heads in the sand and suggest that. But how I see BitTensor going lower than that, particularly in the near future, would be for a full altcoin collapse, correction, in terms of all altcoins are going down. This one's going to go further. So imagine October 10 happen now with where BitTensor's price is, seeing it come back down. And I can't rule it out. I remember seeing people last cycle when we were above 60,000 saying it will never go below 30 again. We went down to 15, 16,000, didn't we? I've kind of been in the market long enough to suggest I ain't ruling out any price. I mean, Capo's $12,000, maybe not, but I will never say never on it. And I try not to just give a definitive answer. So my long way of saying, if we, can we get to $90? If we get down to 162 and it doesn't hold, trust me, we're all going to be talking about the $90. Okay. Because that's the next major level. You got to remember this move up from $35 to 200 and whatever was so aggressive. It was so fast. There's no support. There's nothing between these levels. So in the 3-week difference, it broke 90 and 162. We've never retested that. And I would argue, unless BitTensor makes a massive move prior to a genuine bear market, I could see it getting down there. It's got to fight 162 first, I accept. We lose 162, and what's the one level everyone's going to be talking about? They're going to be talking about, you might not have seen it, the double bottom and the baseline, the waistline of that double bottom, which happens to be that $90 level. I'm going to put it down on the daily now. It might look a little bit messy. It is going to look messy when I do that. What have I done here? There we go. So they all still line. I mean, look. So I was on the weekly and it wicked down to that level. We talked about it. Now put it on the daily. Each of those still occurred in the day. 1/7 of the weekly candle. So when price gets down there, it bounces from it in the same day. But now you can see, this is why I was doing it. There really isn't. There's a little bit of noise around 130 with this shoulder here. But after that, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. So I'd say we're all eyes on 162 first. I mean, we've got the 210 we talked about, but 162, if we're getting down there, we don't hold 162. I think we need to seriously be talking about what the next level from that is. And that's why I can't rule out 90. So I think it's remiss of me to rule it out. I definitely think there are barriers in the way, but crypto price action has a way of humbling everybody. So yeah, just bear that one in mind. Sorry, there's been a few things here. The thing about altcoin market is that it often corrects way worse than people predicted it. Yep. We haven't seen stocks correct properly yet. Okay. Imagine when Mag 7 Russell 2K eventually corrects. Imagine when gold or silver corrects, and they will correct. I mean, silver might push $100 today. Gold probably won't get $5,000 today, but it might do it next week. Those things, silver was $25 a year ago. It's gonna correct. And I think it will catch a lot of people out. When moon, I want it to moon. I really do. I appreciate the tone of these over the last couple of months have been bearish, but price action hasn't really given me too much reason to be happy. The fear and greed index kind of reflects that in terms of where everybody is. I wouldn't say it's a particularly enjoyable atmosphere, enjoyable space to be right now, because despite the fact that this magical internet money is $90,000 for Bitcoin, we're not satisfied. We're not placated. We're not enjoying that. And I feel that it's strange, when I first got into Bitcoin, it was like 17,000, but I was in Bitcoin when it was 3,000, and yet it's 30 times that. And still I'm asking for more. I'm waiting for more. I can't work out the human psychology of that, probably because of where altcoins are, if we're being honest with ourselves. Then B. Jones puts, especially with the resignation from retail, anything can happen in the future without buyers coming in. If Bitcoin bounces to 91,500, so do you think it could pull out? Yeah, so I think generally speaking, let's get off this one. Generally speaking, this is what I want total. This looks like Bitcoin's chart, the total market being, everything, including Bitcoin. And the general rule of thumb, I think we all know it, a high tide rises all ships. If Bitcoin moves up, generally, the whole of the market moves up with it. It may not move as fast or for as long, but it does generally lift everything up, which is why total market cap chart looks so similar to Bitcoin's. And if you overlay, I'm going to have to do it on a clean chart. Just bear with me a second. Clean. And then if we overlay total 2, no, I don't want to do that. that's fine. I want to do total. So, and I'll overlay total 3 as well. And others. Let's just get them all on, shall we? Total 3. What did I have it on? The same scale? I think it was. But others. They all can be now, it doesn't matter. So, I'm just changing it all just so we can. The Bitcoin, total market cap, including Bitcoin's at top. The blue, I know it's confusing, there's a lot of them here, is total 2, so everything but Bitcoin. Green is total 3, so everything but Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then orange is others, everything outside of the top 10. And you can kind of see they all move in the same direction. When Bitcoin goes up, I should have put Bitcoin on at the top as well. You know, there's always one you miss. BTC USD, there we go. And then you got Bitcoin, which is the light blue color. And the point I'm trying to make is generally if Bitcoin goes up, all the other ones kind of go up. Okay? If Bitcoin goes down, generally all the other ones go down. So yes, if Bitcoin bounces, I do expect, unless it's a random outlier or there's some actual massive FUD about an individual project, like an entire development team leaving, the rest of the market to move up with it. That would include BitTensor. Now, how far that goes, I don't know, but we're only talking about Bitcoin moving 2 or 3% to get back to 91.5. So that would mean BitTensor would move, let's just be generous and say 5%. Well, what's 5%? Maybe $10, $12, taking it to 250. It's not a huge move, but it's still there. Now, obviously, if suddenly that catches the eye of people and more people start moving into it, then maybe we can see a bit more of a move. Sorry, that's my long way of answering that question. The only thing keeping me somewhat bullish is the shape of the general economy, and the money printer is ready. I think you're right there with the market. There are some. I know it's supposed to be just charting, but I think you make a very good point. There are positives within the market. You know, for whatever reason, stocks are still going up. For whatever reason, risk-off assets are still going up. They're having, slight pullbacks every now and then, but generally they're moving up. And to be fair, as we alluded to, Bitcoin's still in an uptrend. We just are not placated by the fact that it's gone down for a couple of months, but it hasn't actually lost a low yet. They have ended quantitative tightening. So we know the money printers are starting to turn on. And I kind of talked a little bit on Tuesday about, the Fed buying back treasuries, 55 billion over in the next 3 weeks. It's not exactly a huge earth-shattering, but they're starting to do that. It's not full-on money printer time yet, but it's a transition. They don't just stop quantitative tightening day 1 and flick the on switch day 2. There's a process that goes with that. We've got inflation is supposedly coming down. Whether you use Trueflation or CPI data is there, but the one thing that everyone holds their hats to is this. And it's interest rates. So everyone just assumed we were going to get back to back interest rate drops. We had an interest rate drop last time. Now, though, it's a 97.2% chance next week that we won't get a rate drop. Fairly baked in. I mean, within 6 days worth of data, seems like unless something drastic changes with some data coming out, highly likely that the rate is going to stay the same. So that narrative is shattered. We don't get that interest rate. But what's even more interesting, and you've got to take these with a pinch of salt. The next one's not till mid-March. 84% currently suggests even forecasting 3 months or 2 months away, we're still not going to get a rate cut. So that's suddenly 2 we haven't had. No sharp decline here. You go to April, and granted it's starting to get a little washy now, but even now, with the opportunity of 2 prior chances for rate cuts in January and March, they're still suggesting that they're not even going to be interested in a rate cut come April. 71% say that. And it's not until June that we actually finally get a figure that is more likely to see a cut than anything else, although it's fairly close. Now, trust me, I don't even like looking at this until like the day before, because anything can change. But that certainly is holding back that narrative of, money printers, quantitative tightening ending, quantitative easing about to start, interest rates coming back down. We want to have that interest rates far lower, so it's going to be a bit easier to turn that money printer on. And I've shown on the charts a couple of times that we don't get the real uptick of sort of money printer being turned on, and that actually cascading into S&P, etc., until we see the rates come down, sharp drops down, and then a move from it. Now, a lot of that can change if Trump gets his way and Powell gets sacked, and he's able to bring in his own crony that will, take an entire % off in the first month or whatever, then this could change. I get that. But as it's currently being run on the data we're currently seeing, and maybe just Powell and his boys are just saying, you know what, stuff you. I'm going to try and bring it down as slowly as possible just to be spiteful. And don't forget, I actually believe it's not like Powell will disappear from the Fed. He'll still be on it. He's just not going to be the chair. So, who knows what little support he may have for that. But anyway, so that I get your point of I want to remain bullish. I do too. But I think for those of you that have tuned in enough times, you kind of get a sense for I'm cautious, very cautious with my optimism at the moment. I think that's the right place to be. I think blind bullishness is hopium. That's my honest opinion. I'm not saying we need to bail out into stables and sit there for the next 9 months, but I think we just should be checking ourselves, and that's kind of the message I've always tried to push. Some other assets that I've been looking at, so been trading a bit of XRM. I am in an XRM trade at the moment. I'm pretty much break even. I think I got in at about 511. On this one, it is a long. So we'll see. But as we talked about last week, strong move up, expecting a pullback to the 50 EMA, which is what's happened, which is why I've gone a couple of days worth of longs into it. But again, it's been held back by the 20 EMA. It's even something that moved completely out of sync with the market. Even this one's struggling. No surprise on the pullback. I think we've mentioned that several times, but it's certainly an opportunity now for it. It has been defending that 50 EMA quite well. I'd expect that to continue. Dash, I annoyingly went XRM instead of Dash. Dash has actually moved today. It didn't quite get down to the 50 EMA, but it has found support on the 20 EMA. I think there's a good opportunity there. I'm just not going to... It's moved 11-12% today. There's no point me getting in on a move. I think I just need to wait and see how this one plays out. If we start to break some key levels, and maybe I'll look again at some of the ones it's done in the past. But yeah, a good strong move there from Dash and Zcash. I've actually been shorting this. And I'm just wondering if there's another short presenting itself at around about 380 for this move back down to recover this vector. It's not moved as well as some of the other privacy coins here. And as I said, I'm just driven by sectors, which is why when someone said gaming, I was like, right, I'll start looking at some gaming. Nothing really fancied in there, but I do think there's maybe some opportunity on the daily time frame. It's still looking overbought. This really, I mean, I know down on the RSI, nice little double bottom there, potential for a move up, but you could conceivably see it falling down to 300. It's still being fairly decent on the RSI, but just retracing down to this EMA, touching that base support that it had back from early December, recovering 50% of that vector candle. A lot of things are lining up there, and from that position, maybe taking a bit of a long would be there. Oh wow, a few more coming through. If we haven't lost a low, then isn't it that a bull market? Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, if we haven't lost a low, then isn't that a bull market? Yeah, I mean, sorry, if you click on Bitcoin again, weekly time frame, let's get rid of all of this noise. It's completely clean. Not interested in anything. I mean, whether you want to look at it on the logarithmic chart, as we are here, you want to look at it on the linear chart, we're still in an uptrend. You've got to remember, as we add more noughts to this price, every pullback is going to feel worse, because suddenly a 10% pullback from 126,000 to $12,000, whereas back at the bottom of the bear market, 10% was only $1,800. So from a dollar value point of view, it hurts more, but from a structure or percentage point of view, it's not there. Now, you could also argue, well, a bear market is defined by a loss of 20%. Well, we're currently down at 30% from our all-time high. Technically, that would be a bear market, because we're down greater than 20%. But I would argue, despite the fact that we've lost the 50 EMA, despite the fact that we've retested the 50 and the 20 EMA and rejected from it, despite the fact that the 50 and the 20 EMA on the weekly time frame are crossing each other. We can't officially call it because that is still higher than that. Or if you want to do it wick to wick, that wick there is still higher than this wick here. So we haven't lost that support. And that was the last support. That was the last. It's not like I'm cherry picking from 3 dips ago. This is the last dip we had on the weekly. We haven't lost it yet. The balance is, can we afford to wait? Can we afford to wait for confirmation at 72,000, 73,000? Because how low is it really going to go? If you wait to 73, but it only drops to 68. And so now that's where, personal risk nuance comes in, as when do I feel comfortable with either whatever profit I've got, and if it goes higher and it breaks some things, I get back in, I just have to eat into a little bit of the profit I've already made, versus how much do I still want to protect of this? And this is solely for Bitcoin, remember. Altcoins can fall a lot harder and a lot faster. I would argue that BitTensor has proved, by those same metrics, BitTensor is in a bear market. Because we just can't seem to get a higher high or a higher low. This one hasn't found its bottom yet. So maybe that is a higher low there. But at the moment, this is trending down and this is trending down. So you should be arguing the same thing, that, well, BitTensor is in a bear market. We don't, because that doesn't suit us. On narrative, is that stock indices look much worse without the Mag 7 and without the circular AI money? Are there any indices clear of that influence? I don't know. Would you argue the Russell 2K is a better indication then, because it's 2,000 rather than top 100 or top 500? This is making new all-time highs. It's looking pretty good. I'm sure there is a chart out there. You probably have to pay for it. Maybe I'll do a little Google search, which kind of takes what the S&P looks like after stripping out the Mag 7 or the NAS or whatever. And we can kind of have a bit more. I think I've seen it before where it's effectively just flat. But it'd be interesting to see if that's still the case. I will try and find that for you. I'll post it in chat. Like Bijan's put, there's an argument to make that alts have been in a bear since 2024. I think I've just gone and said something similar just with BitTensor. A bull market, by definition, is a higher high into expansion. Total 3, total 2, you've never shown that. All right, Bijan's on it. As they never broke the 2021 highs. Yep. So for alts, this isn't a bull market, and you could argue it never was to begin with. No evidence money printers are coming anytime soon. I see a recession first. I agree. I still see a recession first. We talk about these sharp recessions like what we had in 2020. I could see something like that. And I've not talked about it, but interestingly enough, when I woke up this morning, I was on the 15-minute time frame, but I was just first thing I do when I wake up is obviously check the markets. And as I woke up, the yen dollar absolutely dropped. It has recovered, but we kind of touched on this, with the interest rates going up. They had another meeting overnight. They kept it at level, so which is probably what that reaction was, and then a recovery. But I don't have it on, annoyingly. But the 10-year yield for the Japanese yen is absolutely flying north. It's like defying all the odds, which is causing problems for those with the carry trade, etc. And it's not unwinding, but people expect it to unwind, and I wonder if it's a sort of like system breaks going to go absolutely skyward first before crashing down, bringing a lot of things down with it. Short-term pain, market resets, excuse for bringing interest rates down, turning those money printers on as the US dollar comes to the rescue. I think that's maybe a discussion for a Tuesday. We've got off charting a little bit here. A lot of charts like Meta, MSTR, Apple showing bearish signs. You've mentioned that a few times before, actually. Yeah. MSTR MicroStrategy is looking tough, isn't it now? Really, they've just bought. They have over 700,000 Bitcoin. They bought 23,000 Bitcoin this week. Over 700,000 now. But the price is not reflecting of it. Look at this thing. Am I on the week? No, I'm on the 15-minute. Jesus, I was like, what's going on here? Oh, I'm on the linear. Right, sorry. tidy these charts up. Poor chart management there. But look, 6 months ago, we were at 450. We have lost 66% value in MicroStrategy in the last 6 months. We are holding on to ETF levels. This is the price. Have they done a stock split or something? Well, let's have a look. It's this one there. I can't quite see. Anyway, this is the price we're currently at, 161. Is kind of the range we were in when ETFs launched and suddenly it was the thing to be in. But we lose these levels. I really can see us coming back down to the base 115. And as I said, like, I've never really invested in MicroStrategy. You get below 3 figures, I actually think it could be an interesting play because it will turn it around. Like, the scarcity of people will wake up to the scarcity of Bitcoin at some stage. And MicroStrategy will be holding, like with BlackRock, some pretty big bags. But right now, there's just not that much interest in it. And this thing is, coming down. So let's have a look. I think the metals, so platinum, copper, palladium, gold, uranium, natural oils are clear bull markets. Yeah, I mean, I don't chart a lot of those, but gold, weekly time frame, look at that. Look at that. Silver, wild. Platinum. Palladium's actually lagging in inverted commas. It hasn't made a high. But there it currently sits. Let's have a look. Just use a formula in ticket search. Use ticket minus ticket after the S&P. Okay, there you go. I'm not going to mess that up in front of everyone, but I'll do it and then I'll post it out. Yep, that is Bijan. Natural gas. Right, okay. We're kind of caught up with everything. So I kind of feel like we almost run a... Oh, this is horrible now. Let me just change all of this. Let's get all of this sorted. Let's clear all this off. Delete, 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 delete. Dixie, I'm on the wrong chart here. Dixie is kind of being stubborn, I suppose. This long-term line all the way, I'm hitting save, all the way down to 2008. Still not lost it. Holding it as fairly decent support. And we're just kind of ranging sideways with it. The VIX was at 20. And I said not quite high enough for you high you buy, but has reset for a bit more stability now. So this week's fun and games have obviously played their course. God knows what will be next week's narrative. S&P, slight pullback. Never quite touched 7,000. We were close though. Look at that, 6,998.9. It's about as close as you can get. But this doesn't feel like it's particularly over. We had this drop down here. So this drop on Tuesday, we went Avenger Day, $7.1 trillion wiped off the stock markets. The next day, even more put back in. We just had a pullback to the bottom of the 50 EMA cloud, and we're just working our way back up. I don't know if it's going to be next week, might be the week after, but I think 7,000 it feels like it's a nailed on thing. Nasdaq again, back to its 50 EMA, okay, ever so slightly below, but it's already recovered it. So yeah, looking particularly strong. Circle, maybe it finds a base down at 66, but it's just not the flavor of the month at the moment. Nvidia starting to make a bit of a bounce back through. I mean, it feels like its all-time high is miles away, but it's actually only $30. So it's about what, 10-15% from its current price. Palantir is actually okay. It's been below its 50 for a while. That's an interesting one. I think I might need to just have a little bit of an eye on this. Maybe so I hold this, have a look at that level, and just decide whether or not I want to sidestep and get out. 'Cause I've been holding it since 2024, so it's been a fairly good run as of late. Tesla's still doing good. Nice strong move up. Sorry, I'm just clicking through some of these. For those of you that are in Astrid, not too much has gone on. Bit of fun and games the last couple of days, although some of you are saying that liquidity is quite low, so that's probably why. Mrs. is ringing me, even though she knows I'm doing this right now. Must be an emergency, but I'm going to wrap it up anyway. So yeah, I think that's probably kind of it. Sorry about the bugs bit there. Bitcoin is stuck in this range of 90,000. It's been in it for the last couple of months, and just because it might go to 92 or 93 or down to 98, it's still the mean is that 90,000. And I would suggest, as I always try and do, one, just reevaluate your data set. But if you are getting particularly nervous, is getting out at this price any different than getting out at 87? What's the risk to reward of that extra $3,000 versus it reversing on you? So just wait for the confirmation. Don't need to act impulsively on absolutely everything. It ain't great where we are in terms of price action. I accept that. Sentiment's low, engagement's low, just generally, a bit more fear in the market. Everything's whipsawing around, but just ride it out. Maybe we're in a bear market and this is as bad as it gets. Maybe that's it, and this is the new normal, what have you. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but what I'd just say is if you're managing to stay here, if you're managing to sort of look at your portfolios, good for you for trying to keep an eye on it. Just engage where you are, manage those emotions, and just wait for the ranges. Try and find a better exit. Exiting down here is never the play. If you're thinking about exiting, just see what, as I say, Bitcoin will come back up. See what Bitcoin does when it moves back up into the 90s. If it fails then think about trying to sort of make a sidestep and make a little bit of money on the side from it, whatever it is you want to do. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm around on Discord all day. I'll DM, tag, whatever it is. We'll be live on Tuesday as well. And I better start thinking about something to talk about at the cuddle, since I invited myself to speak. So hopefully see some of you guys there as well. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers now.